Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to our Ordinance Review Committee public forum. My name is Councilor Jeremy Dubbs, Councilor in Ward 4, and I'm the chair of the committee. This is
And I'm Garrick Perry, Councilor at Large, but live in Ward 4 and the Vice Chair.
here. Sorry. And I'm here with, oh, sorry, you guys have a mic.
Yeah, Stan Moulton, Ward 1, City Councilor.
My name is Dane Cutler, and I am a resident who lives in Ward 3 who's just really nerdy about ordinances.
And so basically, yeah, we've just had our, we've only been a committee for a few months. This is a committee that the city puts together every 5 years, I believe. And it's been 5 years, and so we've had a few meetings so far, and talked about a few ordinances that are ideas of ours, that we thought were interesting, that we wanted to look into. And then we also reached out to department heads and got some suggestions from them. And then we decided that we also wanted to have a public forum so we could hear from all of you, to hear your thoughts about ordinance ideas that you might have, amendments to existing ordinances, or new ordinances that you may want to suggest, or or ordinances that might need to be removed or taken away because they're out of date. So thank you for coming, and we will, unless anyone else has anything to add, we will open the forum up to you. And there's a microphone here. Please feel free to speak your mind. Oh yes, and if you could mention where you your name and where you live. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Griffiths. I am a resident of Ward 4. I'm here today to ask you to please consider implementing a light pollution ordinance. Light pollution is a great problem in today's world, which often goes overlooked because it's something that just happens. Lights are everywhere, and we don't really know what we're losing. Northampton is one of the biggest light polluters in Hampshire County, followed by Amherst, and I feel there's a lot that can be done that will have very little impact on people's daily lives, but will return a great deal, and will also encourage our neighboring communities to also review their bylaws. Light pollution has a great impact. First of all, you can't see the stars at night. It impacts the local wildlife and fauna. Light pollution has been shown to have a causal link to slightly increase the rates of cancer. I could go on all day, but I feel that light pollution is a major concern that takes very little to address in the public realm, and can encourage other people to change their own personal lives in their homes and at businesses, which will also save them lots of money by using less light or using it more efficiently. So if you could please look into this topic, I feel it would be a great benefit to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Anyone else? Oh, do we have a list? Oh, gotcha.
Hello, Ace Taylor, Ward 3. I've spoken at, I think, the last round of this committee. There's a lot of ordinances that have been up for review already that I'm really in favor of, like actually enforcing snow plowing and snow clearing, maybe letting there be food trucks downtown, and clearing light pollution. I want to co-sign. I'm here to briefly touch on one that I talked about before, which is I would love it if city ordinances could be updated for gender neutral language. I'm someone who uses they, them pronouns, and I noticed a lot of cases of he or she in ordinances, or some artifacts of just he. I think using they instead as a standardized gender unknown pronoun is going to make it a lot more inclusive and easier to read and understand things, plus stands for the city's values generally. The new one that I wanted to bring up is apropos of the heat wave now, and also the heat wave last week, 2 weeks ago. It turns out in Massachusetts, it is only legal for men to be topless in public. I think that's a little unfair. I think that, being able to be cool and comfortable in the summer is a morally neutral to morally positive act. It doesn't make sense for there to be discrimination on same. It's mostly legal precedent that says, quote, females cannot be topless. Nantucket has an ordinance that allows all access toplessness, I think restricted to the beaches, but I would love if Northampton had an ordinance in place that said, yeah, that's cool, go for it. There is some argument to be had that some folks may feel it is morally incorrect to do. What I've found is that hearts and minds are changed by policy, not the other way around. If we had this as an ordinance, I think we would move towards it being more publicly acceptable, publicly accessible, and more accepting in that way. Thanks.
Thank you, Ace. Much appreciated. Yeah, whoever wants to go next.
Hi, I'm Meg Robbins, Ward 4, and I actually have a dilemma for you, which I have been trying to track down, and I can't figure out who's in charge. I've been collecting signatures as a candidate for at-large city council, and last week, a woman who was signing my nomination papers said, she pretty much grabbed me, and she said, I need someone to listen to me. She said, I've had this issue since 2020 about not being able to sleep on the weekends. I mean, that is intriguing. So I'm sort of like, I get it. She lives in Hampton Court, and there are surrounding buildings that are, much of it is affordable housing on the parking lot in Hampton Court. And I think since 2020, as far as I can remember, and as far as the story is, I know Garrick is going to remember, there was Patria was there first, I think, and they got an extension license to have music until 2 a.m. They got that from the licensing commission. So they had it during COVID. I'm not sure why there was dancing during that time and people in a room. I don't really go back that far, but the noise started then. And then TELUS bought that space or took that space and somehow got the license extended to having disco night on Friday and Saturday nights during the summer. I think it correlates with when the farmer's market runs, the dates the farmer market runs to, which is great. Downtown music, that's all really wonderful, but it's not wonderful for the people who live there because between 10 and 2 a.m, well, alcoholic beverages are being consumed at TELUS Bar, and it's very popular. People come in. According to, and I've now talked to several residents, according to them, the music is often very loud, but what's really awful, and a number of them are elderly, is that as we all have been in a situation where there's that bass beat that just gets into your ears and you can't stand it and you can't stop it no matter how some people have bought white machines. One person told me she's asked to have her apartment moved to the other side of the building where she had not wanted to be because she thought the traffic would upset her, but it's worse living there. So they have the constant decibel of that, and they seem to have gone through many steps of trying to find someone who will help them with it over the course of these years. John Fry came out and checked the decibel level for them because there is an ordinance about noise. There's a state law about noise. So there is a noise ordinance. And this person told me he came and checked it, and he was kind enough to come at around midnight to check it one night. And then he said it didn't reach the level that would require some kind of mitigation because the decibel level wasn't that high, but did not give, as far as these people knew, any numbers to go with that. So they had no record of what was recorded. And they said the night that he came, it wasn't as bad as it often is. And I don't know what the process is around measuring that. But he basically said the only thing that I don't know who he would represent since he's weights and measures, who he would have been coming here on behalf of. But he said that even if the decibel level was really loud closer to TELUS, as soon as it got to the parking lot, it was out of TELUS's control. So it was sort of a free-for-all. It belonged somewhere else. And it was the best that they could do. And this particular person has called a number of people over the years and feels very unpopular about having made the calls, has called the police to say, because in addition, at 2 o'clock when the bar closes, people come out feeling pretty sprightly and they come into the parking lot and they turn on more music and they're often fights. And I think there is part of the licensing thing. You have to have 2 guards in the building at all times, but the guards they're just at Telus, so they're not in the parking lot. And then the parking lot, you can call the police and the police may come and try to quiet things down, but they don't, this person felt like making those calls. What they had heard was they didn't like getting those calls. And she said she could have called every weekend because it was every weekend. This particular person is taken to leaving town on the weekend and staying with someone else. It's her home. And she just said she doesn't know what to do. It's just gotten to that place. But the confusing part was, so there's ordinances about noise. There's the licensing commission who grants basically noise making events. Some are short term. This one is long term and seems to be ongoing. And then it also seemed as though this also comes under the building commission. So who do we talk to about trying to make this a pleasant place for people to live? And one of the biggest concerns I think that came up is that it is affordable housing. We are trying to have infill and greater density downtown and have people who want to move here and have a pleasant walk to and the 5-minute whole thing. But I don't think people are going to move here and not be able to sleep at night. And I think it's something we need to take into consideration in terms of long range and short range plans. But right now, you have constituents who are really, 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 really sad and really can't go on. And I'm sure Telus brings in thousands of dollars worth of revenue with those late night hours, which is good for recurring revenue for the city. That is wonderful. But somehow I guess my question is, what's the balance and what's the role of the city and what's the role of your commission being able to talk to these other branches about trying to work out a way so that folks can live side by side and sleep during the weekends during the summer. I didn't tell you it was going to be an easy puzzle, but I did walk away from talking to these people feeling really badly for them and just feeling mostly badly because they said that they have talked to a number of people in the past who said it's not my problem. And I'm hoping that people at this end will be able to say, we're going to help iron this out, roll down to some kind of a conclusion and be able to at least say to these people who live in this housing, and I would be interested in hearing from people in a larger area around here, if you have suggestions about how to do that, what that looks like in the future as we build. I've noticed that the licensing commission has been issuing more short-term licenses and longer-term licenses for music. I think Toasted Owl just got one, but it's inside, so hopefully it'll stay inside without the doors open. I noticed one of the new ice cream places on Main Street was piping music outside as I walked down Main Street the other day. I don't know what the limits are on that. I don't know how people in the city feel about noise. I know that we do have city lights ordinances because we are worried about lights, but where are we in terms of noise? Thanks for listening. And these folks really, they felt very shy about coming out to talk to you. And a number of them don't know how to get on Zoom. So thanks for listening. It's not me, I'm representing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Hi.
Hi, I'm Danny McCann. Live on Perkins Avenue. I would like to ask you to take a look at speed limits in the city. So I'm going to read something that's from a colleague of mine on Strong Towns Northampton. The mobility team has been working on better safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And so I'm going to use words that are put together better than I could to kind of suggest a pathway that we might think about a policy. So historically, changing regulatory speed limits has been notoriously difficult because of a laborious MassDOT approval process. So there's like a whole thing you have to go through to change your speed limit. However, in section 10C of the procedures, MassDOT describes the process for setting 20-mile-per-hour safety zones that doesn't require MassDOT approval, so you could kind of bypass it. The criteria are simple. The street should be adjacent to a land use that is likely to attract vulnerable road users. The safety zone should contain one or more areas that have potential conflicts between motor vehicles and vulnerable road users that warrant a reduction in speed, such as crosswalks, driveways, or side streets. The minimum length of the safety zone should be at least a quarter of a mile and should not be more than and should not extend more than 500 feet beyond a side street unless an applicable land use continues along the adjacent block. So this is something a tool we could be using today, and we're not. And I was kind of thinking maybe if we could codify it somehow and even make it possible or highlight it and lay out a process by which citizens could apply and show how these criteria are being met and bring it to the Transportation and Parking Commission, that we could kind of be a little bit more aggressive about lowering speed limits on residential and other streets that are problems in the city when these criteria can be met. The city of Cambridge has been committed to safe streets, and in 2019, they started installing roughly 660 of these 20-mile-per-hour safety zone signs across the city, even on a couple of major arterials. So while speed limit signs or posted speed limits are admittedly not, the main way in which vehicle speeds are controlled, they are a way. There is research that shows that there are a number of cues that as a driver you cue into. One of them, of course, the most impactful one is how the road is actually designed. But people are also looking at what the posted speed limits are and other things like that. So the posted speed limit does really matter, and also can kind of then start to build a case for when roads are being redesigned, for redesigning them to that new posted speed limit rather than to the higher one. So and also just if you had 700 of these all around the city, you'd be creating a lot of cues for slowing traffic everywhere where it's a problem. So that's what I would love for you to look into if you had a little extra time on your hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Newfer. I am in Ward 1B, also on Perkins, your neighbor. I wasn't sure how prepared to be for this, so I wrote a lot of stuff. So it'll take me a minute to get through. I'm going to go through quickly, but I'd also love to send you all a follow-up email because I pulled up some specific language and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Anything you've got, you can send to Laura, whose
Okay.
email is in the agenda.
Great. Then I will skip reading all the specific code numbers and language and everything. So one thing that I wanted to bring up is that Northampton already has some ordinances that sort of designate us, and I'm trying to remember the specific language, but in some ways a sanctuary city, safe community. I'm trying to remember exactly the name that's used in the code. I think that there's some really great ordinances there already, and I think that they could be bolstered a little bit. I was looking at some other ordinances in Massachusetts. Greenfield, for example, has a little bit more extensive ordinances in their similar safe city section, including that city officials are not permitted to inquire as to individuals' immigration status unless required to by federal or state law. I think that would be something great to add to Northampton's language. Potentially also to prevent city officials from storing data related to an individual's immigration status unless required to by federal or state law. Greenfield also requires that a city official shall not target with legal action or discriminate against a medical, educational, or faith institution in their mission of providing refuge to immigrants and their families, and prevents city officials for detaining or delaying the release of an individual who's eligible for release from custody on the basis of a civil immigration detainer request or an ICE administrative warrant. So those are some of the types of things I think we could add to our existing language just to make it a little bit more robust. So that's sort of one category of fairly time-pressing urgency right now, I think. And then I have a bunch of suggestions when it comes to climate and environmental ordinances for the city. And one is that the Metropolitan Area Planning Council has a checklist for ordinance review committees for low impact development code. So you can go through your city code and sort of see all of these really specific suggestions for stormwater, for building codes and zoning codes and things like that to try to endorse low impact development. And so there's a bunch. I just like recommend everything that's on that list. Some of that stuff Northampton is already doing. We have codes that allow for green architecture like swales and things like that. But we also have some areas where there is minimum parking that's greater than what's recommended by these low impact development recommendations. They suggest establishing parking maximums, which is, to my knowledge, Northampton does not have, for new construction and development, decreasing required setbacks from buildings from the road and that sort of thing. So that's sort of a general recommendation. Sorry, I said I had a lot to get through. I would love to see some ordinances for the city to transition away from gas-powered landscaping equipment, especially leaf blowers, which gets into some noise pollution issues, as well as being, a contributor to climate change through their use of gas and really devastating for invertebrate populations. Cambridge has some regulations around this in their city ordinances that could serve as a model. I would love to see contracts with the city seeking to eliminate peat products, maybe on some sort of, transitional timeline, but peat and landscaping materials is harvested from peat bogs, which are a massive carbon sink in our environment. So they pull in a lot of carbon from the atmosphere. Unfortunately, when they're disturbed, they release a ton of carbon into the atmosphere. So the harvesting of peat products and the use of those in landscaping is really devastating for climate change. This is sort of environmental and also a sort of human issue. Something that I've been concerned about is seeing in some sort of green spaces in the city where my neighbors are living or sleeping in tents and tent encampments, that those are also areas that are treated with pesticides in some cases by the city, by utility companies or other landowners. There are regulations around the use of pesticides in residential areas, schools, and things like that where kids are living. But unfortunately, when people are sleeping outdoors, they're often not being, counted in this way as a residence or in terms of the exposure. So I don't have specific language here. I wasn't able to find any model ordinances for this, but perhaps some sort of ordinance that would allow for posted notice where there's regular, predictable herbicide or pesticide application if there's indication of any kind of inhabitation would be something to explore. And then the last thing I'll say, and this I have a lot of specific code around that I'll email, but there's a lot of places where we could introduce some regulation or some ordinance to help sort of protect Northampton's ecosystem from invasive species. I'm an invasive species and climate adaptation ecologist, and I work with policymakers, so I'm also happy to talk about this in more detail, but some really quick things that come to mind are we already have ordinances defining and prohibiting alteration of wetlands, but the introduction of invasive species, including regulated invasive species in Massachusetts, isn't considered currently as alteration of wetlands. So invasive species hugely alter wetlands. So I think just adding the introduction of invasive species into our definitions of alteration there, as well as into the definitions of damage to the environment that appear, in some of the zoning code. We have some landscaping code that allows for the planting of invasive species. I would love to see that shift to expecting that a majority of plants that the city are planting are native species and that invasive species won't be planted by the city, as well as selecting plants for landscaping, street trees, and that sort of thing that are both suitable for current and likely future climate conditions. Often municipal plantings are thinking about what's going to survive right here, right now, but with drastic warming expected over the next decades, especially for long-lived plantings like shrubs and trees, thinking a little bit ahead to the future to make sure that as we're putting street trees in, they're ones that are going to not die as the heat increases, will serve us all better. So I'm happy also to talk more about ideas around that, but that's my long list of suggestions. Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Alex O'Prey. I also live in Ward 1B.
My first is just an ask that the language in the ordinance around snow plowing, sidewalks, and things like that gets clarified or enforced better in some way. There are parts of, especially King Street, by large businesses, like some of the car dealerships, that become completely unusable in the winter because they're not cleared, and that clearing is not enforced, and it means anyone who uses wheels on anything, whether that be a wheelchair, a stroller. I use a grocery cart. I walk to get my groceries. I can't walk to get my groceries in the winter because I can't walk on the sidewalks there. So clarification around that language or better enforcement of it, I would really like. Another thing is, I know application fees are illegal in Massachusetts for rental properties, but that is not always enforced. Rent No Ho charges application fees for every application. They also charge broker fees that are almost a month's worth of rent for most people. And I would like to see some enforcement, or again, creation of an ordinance severely limiting, if not removing entirely, brokerage fees from city rental properties, because it really limits the diversity of who can live here when you have to pay an extra month of rent. And then my last thing is a set of proposals. Again, I don't have specific language, but around heat. One is protection in contracts for city workers around heat safety. So there are other cities like Boston that require shade or access to water or cooling spaces for people who are contracted by the city. And I think something like that would keep a lot more workers safe during heat waves. The other thing I would like to propose is that leases are currently allowed to prohibit air conditioner units in buildings for rental properties. And that means that if you're renting and don't have air conditioning in your building, which most of the rental properties here do not have, you can't get cool in the summer without breaking your lease. And the last one is, there's no requirement that nursing homes have air conditioning. And I think that would be another city ordinance that would help a lot of people stay safe in the heat. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, do we have anyone on Zoom that might want to chime in? Oh yeah, Randy.
Hi. I have two that I'd like to bring up. One is require written.
Randy Saylor, would you like to speak?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I'm trying to. Hello? I'm unmuted. Laura's looking puzzled. I can't hear you either, Laura.
Yeah, Laura, I think you might be.
Hello? I can't hear Laura.
Hang on, tech support is on the way.
Okay.
See.
We tested it earlier, it seemed to work.
Testing. Can you hear me now?
We can hear folks who spoke at the microphone. Maybe you could go to the microphone if you needed to say something.
Well, I'm not in the building.
Okay, should we try Colin? Colin Hoffmeister? We'll come back to you, Randy.
Okay.
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Oh, looks like Colin's not working either.
Hi.
I can hear him.
Sorry, we're having a technical audio
Okay.
issue.
I can hear Randy, but I can
Yeah,
hear
and I can hear Colin.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
And the only video I see is really of Laura. You see that too? Now I see you.
I see Laura in the senior center.
Right. Maybe this is a way of censoring what they don't want to hear.
I doubt it.
I'm kidding.
Folks are on the board are pretty good.
They are, I agree. I've gone to several meetings and usually this works. It's a nice feature. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? No?
We can see you, but we still can't hear you.
We can see you. We just can't hear you yet. We can't hear you yet, but we're working on it. Just be
Okay.
a brief moment.
I swear this was working an hour ago.
It was. Yeah, we tested it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Worth a shot. Do you want to try to zoom in there and Thomas, if you want to bring your laptop up to the podium and aim your mic at it, that might work. We shall find out.
Yeah, that's basically we're gonna take a look at the whole list and yeah and
Correct.
basically yes, yeah.
One of the things that we're trying to do is compile a list of existing ordinances that people want changed, and then things people wish were ordinances that don't exist. And so building that list to tackle is the stage that we're in right now.
But if someone in the room is speaking, there'll be feedback, so I'll need to mute my.
I think we can juggle that. Let's give it a try.
Colin, can you speak?
Yes, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Colin Huffmeister. I live in Ward 3 on Phillips Place. In September of 2023, City of Northampton had a press release that states Mayor Sciarra recognizes the importance of transparency and ensuring that accurate information is readily available to all residents. And referring to the planning department, the City of Northampton is dedicated to fostering open communication and promoting community engagement. So I have a recommendation for a change to the city ordinance to increase transparency and to ensure residents' right to know when zoning changes are made that affect their property. Now, a zoning change is a major regulatory action. Northampton's current zoning code states that the public hearing notice shall be mailed to the owner of the land proposed for rezoning, section 350-3.5. But homeowners next to that lot that is being proposed to be rezoned from residential to, say, central business may not receive such notice. This limits essential public feedback and oversight on development. Now, this actually happened to me. In 2022, the city rezoned an adjacent parcel from residential to commercial business side street without notifying me or my neighbors. On March of 2025, 3 years later, we learned an apartment complex was proposed for that site. This development is out of character and disproportionate to a residential neighborhood. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it has significant potential impacts such as parking and traffic issues, reduce privacy, blocking sunlight to nearby homes. Now, despite significant opposition, the planning board approved the project. So the original plan that was proposed to us was in 2020 and was for 6 condos. The neighborhood had no opposition. Apparently, the planning board was aware of the developer's change to an apartment complex after the city made the zoning change in 2022, but the neighborhood did not find out until 2025. So my recommendation is to amend section 350-3.5 to require written notification to abutters of any upcoming hearings concerning rezoning. Now, that would be consistent with the approach that is used by such towns as South Hadley. This notification must include clear identification of the parcel numbers and the street. My second recommendation is for an environmental ordinance, and that is a solar protection ordinance or solar rights for homeowners that would afford you the right to produce solar power and to not be blocked by future developments near your property. The state is encouraging us to switch to electric power. As we all know, the city has that initiative and has solar initiatives. I am doing that, and I've invested heavily in that, but now this proposed apartment building may really cost me literally tens of thousands of dollars. So I think it would be very smart of the city to look into an environmental ordinance for solar protection rights. And that's all I have for you today, and I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you so much, Colin.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was loud. Sorry.
And thank you
Okay.
especially for citing the ordinance number. That's really helpful for us.
Great. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Sure. Who would like to speak next? We got Randy Saylor. Yeah. Hey, Randy.
Hi, can you hear me
One
now?
second.
Oh, can you hear me? Thank you, Garrick. And I'm speaking about 2 ordinances that I would propose. The first is to require temporary pedestrian access route planning for work areas that substantially block sidewalks. There are places where sidewalks are blocked. Folks that are able-bodied are forced to walk out in the street or walk laboriously around areas, going to a previous block, crossing the street, and then coming down. I think that we need to have some written plans by whoever is doing the work, particularly when we're coming up with all the work on Main Street. The place where I got my inspiration for this is that across from the jail, there is on Route 66, there's a spot where the land falls away on a regular basis and takes the sidewalk out with it. That regularly blocks the sidewalk, and yet there's no way around that sidewalk falling apart while it's being repaired or anything. There's no protected way that anybody can get around that. That's my inspiration. But I think there are a lot of places where the sidewalk is blocked by people temporarily working on something that limits people that are pedestrians or folks who are disabled from making their way around a site. So I think that's a really important rule as we're moving along. The second one is someone earlier said, but ban over time, maybe, but the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. There's 2-stroke engines are noisy, they're unhealthy for workers, and the pollution exacerbates climate change. They're among the most heavily polluting appliances that anyone uses. And I think it would be great to get rid of the noise, at least of leaf blowers, if not other two-stroke engines. The electric tools are becoming substantially better. Certainly maybe over time, but we ought to start down that road. There are plenty of municipalities in the Commonwealth that have done that, that are on the path or have done it. Arlington, folks in Martha's Vineyard, Cambridge. There's a bunch of folks that have already gone down that path, and I think it's time Northampton started going down that path. Thank you.
Okay, who would like to speak next? We have, who's that? Aaron Murray. Hello.
Hi. Thank you. So, my name is Erin. I was a resident of Northampton for several years. I'm currently a resident of Connecticut. I'm a faculty member in the OT department, occupational therapy department, at Western New England University in Springfield, Mass. The ordinance that I will be referring to for amendment is 312-43, subsection D, accessible parking. I'm going to try to be concise, but I did write this down because I wanted to get all my points in. So my what is to advocate for the change of the word handicap to reserved on designated accessible parking spaces, and to change the old international symbol of access to the updated dynamic accessibility icon. If you have not seen that, it has been passed in the state legislation of New York, statewide since 2013, and Connecticut since 2017. If you can see this, it kind of looks like this. It's a dynamic icon. How can we make this happen? We can make this happen without any extra costs. It would be done in a budget neutral manner, by applying the change to new installations and replacing old signs as needed. This can create a more inclusive society without affecting business budgets or taxpayer dollars. So why do we want to do this? Some of the reasons to change handicap to reserve. Respect and dignity. Using reserved focuses on the purpose of the space rather than the condition of the person using it. It indicates that the space is set aside for someone who needs it without implying anything about their capabilities. Language evolves. Modern language, words such as reserved, are more neutral, align with more of our contemporary language practices. Updating the language to be more respectful with neutral terms helps promote inclusivity, and helps reduce some of the stigma associated with disability. Some of the reasons to change, from the traditional stationary accessibility icon to an active moving icon. Empowerment. The active moving icon depicts a person in a wheelchair, in motion, conveying action, independence, capability. This represents those with a disability as active participants in society rather than passive or stationary. Positive representation. The dynamic icon challenges stereotypes and shows that people with disabilities are mobile and can engage actively in various aspects of life. Personally, I do use a chair when needed. I do need to park closer to most stores, but I also have a job. I have value. And just because I need to park closer does not mean I'm a lesser member of society. Currently, like I said, Connecticut has passed it since 2017. I've had the wonderful opportunity to speak to many of the ARC, the nonprofit ARC that really spearheaded it. They've given me a lot of great information. There are also other municipalities and cities that use it. Phoenix, Arizona, it is citywide. The city of Malden, Mass, with the support of their mayor, and the city's ADA officer, reported it's an accessible icon as a substantial equivalent to the international symbol of access, is in compliance with the Massachusetts current legislation, 521 CMR 41 signage. I've also reached out to DEI commissions, Salem, Mass, the city council, and their commissions do use it in their municipalities. I spoke with their public works department. They said that they had no pushback. Everyone liked it, and it was very, very easy to implement. Again, it does not cost taxpayers any money. It would only be replaced. It's just a different stencil that you would already have to procure to have ADA compliant parking for any new businesses or if there's major renovations. I think it's a way to promote respect and dignity. I love Northampton. I think it's a very inclusive area, but I would love for us and for you to consider taking this important step towards equality and dignity for all. I want to thank you for your time, consideration, and for your opportunity to provide public comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. That was great. Coming up next is Daniel Brendel.
Hey guys, can you see me? Hear me? Yeah. All right. Hey, I'm here to suggest the repeal of the form-based code. It's a giant omnibus. It was passed in the very, very early days of this mayor's administration, and a lot of counselors, first couple of weeks on the job. I don't think it was adequately reviewed. There's a lot of really great wording in it and explanations and ideas about sidewalks and walkability and our downtown. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that the reality is that giant omnibus bill that we paid consultants to write, the function of it is mostly the kind of upzoning that me and my neighbors have been dealing with for the past couple of months, and that we've been trying to raise attention to through the council and various other avenues. About 23, maybe 24 residential lots in that bill without really a lot of notice, definitely without notifying the residents who live near them. 23 residential lots were upzoned, not just to commercial, but to this new designation, commercial central business side street. What that does, not only does it mean that people building apartment buildings can go the highest density possible without providing a single parking spot, but much more to the point and about sort of our town's initiatives and the mayor's claimed initiatives, what that does is it gets rid of any affordable housing requirements. It gets rid of any green space or environmental requirements. It gets rid of any protections of any of the residential neighbors, the residential community. Lots of pollution stuff involved in not just the construction of the building, but then the actual running of the building. All of those things get stripped under this new zoning designation, central business side street, which frankly is just a massive deregulation. A lot of these regulations for affordability and green space were crafted and fought for years upon years upon years by the people of this city, by city councils of this city, by the boards, and review commissions of this city. All of that was stripped from many of our city's most attractive lots that are likely to see development and construction over the next couple of years. And what we are looking at, if anybody watched the budget hearing recently, President Jarrett brought up at the very, very end of it that despite all of this development, all of this upzoning, all of these brand new buildings, not a single affordable unit credit was applied for. Because the reality is that when you lift the requirements that developers provide affordable housing, limit size to increase affordability, provide green space, protect nature, any of that, when you lift those requirements, when you lift those regulations, they just won't do it. And we've seen that play out. If you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, we've now seen this play out a couple of times. It will continue. If this is a town that cares about affordable housing, if this is a town that cares about the environment, I think we really, really, really need to consider scaling back, striking the form-based code, whatever it maybe claimed it was, or the supporters of it in 2022 thought it was. The reality is it is a massive deregulation, and it is just destroying the dream of affordable housing in this town. If we're building a ton of high density housing and not a single one of those units is affordable, what we're doing is driving up rents. not down rents, and we're destroying the potential for home ownership. And not to mention with climate change, it's crazy to be having lots full of buildings from border to border with not a single tree or grass. All of that can be chopped down, no oversight. So I really, really, really encourage the city to look into the form-based code and all of these sorts of ordinances that were passed in the early days of the mayor. This is one of the reasons I'm running for mayor. It's one of my promises is to look at this and get rid of it if I'm elected mayor. Hopefully that's not even necessary if this committee can really look at the form-based code and dig into it. I think the more you look into this and the more you dig into it, as I have, you will discover horrifying things and you will say, we have to get rid of this. And I encourage you to do so. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to speak?
Counselor, if I can jump in for a quick second.
Sure, go ahead.
Danielle, this is absolutely not a requirement. This is just a request from somebody who wants to save time. Is if there is any way that you can forward an email citing some of those codes and ordinances that you're talking about to Laura, that would be really fantastic and help us dig in.
Sure. Yeah. So just to clarify, it's just one. It's called the form-based code.
Hang on. We haven't turned you on
Sorry.
yet.
Oh, sorry.
There you are. Okay, we can hear you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. So it's just one ordinance. It's called the form-based code. It was an omnibus, so it's gigantic. I'm pretty sure Laura has a copy of it in PDF because me and her are sending this thing back and forth. Yeah, all year long. So yeah, it is out there in the ether. If anybody needs me to highlight it or bring attention to it, it cost me $100 to print a Paradise copy. So I would encourage people to not print it out. But it is out there, and I'll try to get that to whoever was who was asking. I'm sorry, I can't. We're very zoomed out of that room.
Dane.
Okay.
Dane
Yep. All right. Yeah. I will reach out and I will get you that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So someone on Zoom that wants to go next. Oh, okay. Anyone else? Oh, there's no one. Okay.
You can see raised hands and participants.
Okay. Anyone here would like to speak? Anyone here? Looks like maybe not.
If possible, thank you. I just want to thank everybody for coming out, everybody on the internet too. There's a lot of great ideas. It feels good to hear them. I just wanted to touch on a couple things. It seems that some of the people who brought them up aren't here, but just for the record, we have looked at light pollution in city council. So we did pass something to address that for everyone to know. We have also looked at reducing speed limits. I believe Councilors Nash and Councilors Jarrett doing it, but it's been worked on since 2017. But I think there's still some work to be done. I just want to let the public know that. For Meg, who is here, and folks, one of the things that I brought up was the sound and noise ordinance. Because of that, I actually brought up Telus as an example of that. So we are really that is something that I am interested in looking at, especially as our downtown becomes more vibrant, as you have more music and more people coming downtown. So I just wanted the public to know that we were dealing with that. As Ace was saying, we have looked into brokers' fees, and we have supported not allowing that. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but thank you for bringing that forward. And I think that was all I kind of wanted to just touch on for folks. If I think of something else, I will go back. But again, thank you.
I will add one more thing since I remember just it being flagged. I need to look into this, but it is my understanding that anyone in Northampton can be topless. That's what I was told when I moved here 20 years ago. Topless. So in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, only people with flat chests are allowed to be topless in public. And it was told to me, my first Pride here, which featured a lot of topless people at the time, that Northampton specifically permitted anybody to be topless in public. But if we don't actually have that codified, we can take a look.
My understanding, I was just looking this up a couple days ago too, that not restricted, nor is it explicitly permitted.
Neither restricted
It's
nor,
up to- Generally.
Yep.
Again.
On the subject of broker's fees, also to add to what Councilor Perry has said, the city council did adopt a resolution seeking to shift the broker's fees from tenants to landlords. And the state budget that was just released today that the legislature has sent to the governor would ban tenant-paid broker's fees throughout the state. My suggestion to the chair is we have a regular meeting next week. I would like to see us, while this is all fresh in our minds, and I appreciate everyone who spoke tonight, I would like to see us review the suggestions that were made tonight and see which we're going to put on sort of our action agenda.
I think that's a great
That
idea.
meeting next week. That meeting is July 9th.
July 9th, yes.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Counselor. We will definitely review these at the next meeting.
go ahead, Thomas. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing in regards to the light pollution ordinance, because I had looked and I saw a lot of stipulations around outdoor lighting, like downward lighting and stuff like that. I'm such a Grinch about light pollution, but I wonder if there might be some way to bolster that around indoor lighting. Like I walk by some of the furniture stores and other things like that downtown late at night, and it's like these big windows, sometimes 2 o'clock, 3 in the morning, nobody's shopping, all the lights are on. And so I don't know to what extent that could come into an ordinance, but I always just want to go around unplugging stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that. And as these guys all mentioned, we are meeting next Wednesday. Each of our meetings is open to the public. The agendas are posted on the city website, and there is a Zoom link to all of them. They have a public comment period that is just like a city council comment period without the time limits. So you can come talk to us. But for those of you who signed in and gave your email addresses, we will endeavor to follow up with you once we have discussed and let you know what we're moving forward with. In addition to posting it as we're legally required to and issuing it in our final report, which will happen sometime before the end of the year.
Thank you, Dane. Yeah, and also, so the conversation will continue. So anyone who didn't get a chance to speak tonight will be able to speak during our public comment at our future meetings for the next one being July 9th. So see, anyone else have anything that they would like to add? Oh, go for it. Hello.
Hello, my name is Gwen Nabad, and I live in Northampton in Ward 1. And this is probably all of this been what I'm going to mention right now been discussed. And I understand that in Ward 1 along King Street, where there's some complexes, especially public housing, there's been a lot of issues with excessive light in the back of the buildings rather than in the front of the buildings. And I understand that's run by the state, but I think the state is still obligated to follow local ordinances, maybe unless it's in an industrial zone. So, but people live there. And then the other issue that people have experienced is the loudness of the train. And I don't know how much can be done about that, but I know when the train goes through downtown, it's pretty quiet. So that's something really pressing that that comes up in Ward 1 from my neck of the woods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would second that motion.
No, we're an open forum. We're not a meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we have to actually do a roll.
We can just
Oh,
end
gotcha,
it. We
yeah.
can just go.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. And this was great. And we hope to continue the conversation as we move forward. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you more. And we will be getting back to all of your suggestions very soon.
And please take food.